anybody who trains in a different country, you have to do residency again to come to the United States, correct?
Yes, yes. And this is what I feel personally the most horrible about. Some of these physicians are not just well respected, but known. They're famous in their home country. They've done big things, innovative things. And in America, they don't care. You can be so famous that you're consulting physicians in America, but when it comes time that you want to go practice in America, they'll treat you like a PGY1 or really a PGY0. They don't care.
What exactly is it that we're not trusting?
If I had to choose one, the fact that they went to medical school abroad, especially older program directors, they are just not going to trust someone who did not get taught medicine in the States. They don't care where you come from.
What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee. I am joined by Dr. Simrat Gill with Residence Medical. This is a little bit of a different episode. Listen, we are coordinating. We are combining our powers and working with groups that we think align with our audience. And what we found out through our survey and through our studies is that we have quite a few international medical graduates who listen to Docs Outside the Box, follow us on Instagram, as well as with Residence Medical. Residence Medical is a residency placement as well as fellowship placement organization company that really focuses on getting international medical graduates into ACGME accredited programs. And listen, I know it's hard out there. It's really hard out there for IMGs to travel, to pay for all of these tests and board examinations and try to get into residency in the United States. It's very difficult. And, we talk about all the different soft skills that you need to do to really succeed as a physician here in the United States. And I think sometimes we forget about some of the extra added burden that our IMGs have to face, whether it's in the Caribbean or anywhere else in the United States. So that's what this show is about. That's what this episode is about. Dr. Simrat Gill, welcome to Docs Outside the Box, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So I'm looking at the background. We got a whole bunch of pictures there. Now, for those who are watching on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of pictures that are behind Dr. Gill. I'm going to assume, are these candidates or doctors that you've helped, or are these like consultants?
Exactly. No, they're candidates that we've helped in the past over the course of 20 years, whether it's in residency or fellowship, throughout various specialties. All of these people have reached out to us. We were able to guide them at any point of the stage that they came to us, and we got them their dream position.
So listen, why don't you just tell us from the get-go, what is Residence Medical? What is it about? How does it work? How long have you guys been out there? Because I hear that you guys are often duplicated, but you can never really get the original. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So Residence Medical, we're an educational consulting firm that specializes in assisting IMGs. We have a model that uses a network of residency programs affiliated with U.S. Teaching schools and hospitals. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. Really what we were doing is we were helping back in the day GMEs get created and assisting hospitals in getting ACGME accredited. So by doing so, we did this with a stipulation with these programs saying, hey, because we've helped you, we want the programs to be diverse. We want them to be filled with IMGs. And if we have candidates of ours that meet the criteria of your program, then we would wish our candidates to be considered for a position in your residency or fellowship. So as a result, over 20 years later, we've have established a network of over 100 programs throughout the country. We've helped almost 2,000 candidates achieve residency as well as fellowship. And not to toot our own horn, but our success rate is in the high 90th percentile. Essentially, if I had to describe it in one sentence, what we do is we take on the responsibility of getting you into residency. In terms of how we're able to do so, we act as your mentor. We're your guide throughout the journey, whether you're already ECFMG certified and you're just applying for programs ready to achieve residency, or you're starting off fresh and you're about to prepare for your step one. You just finished med school. At any stage in your journey, we're able to assist and guide you in making sure you're making the right decisions and the right calls.
So I know a lot of this stuff is proprietary. I get it. But how does the mentoring look? What does that look like? Is that something as simple as guiding them as to the specific residencies that you guys have been able to get folks into? Is it like a change in the type of maybe personal statement, shadowing? Talk to us about like the specifics I know you can't get into too much specifics, but talk to us about that mentoring process. How does that work?
No, thank you for the question. It's a good question for sure. The mentoring is one-on-one first and foremost. I every week it's mandatory for all of the counselors on staff that we meet with all of our candidates one-on-one over a Zoom call, and we all are reachable on our cell phones. So at any point of day or night, if there's any issue or any concern, they all of our candidates know to reach out, and we'll be able to help them. As far as the pathway that's
Almost
constructed.
like a therapist.
Exactly, exactly. The pathway that's constructed, it's really about having them showcase their clinical skills when it's time for them to apply for residency. Though our model has always been about prove yourself. We will open the doors for you because most of the time IMGs don't have any doors opening for them. What we specialize in really is opening the doors for you to go prove yourself. And by doing so, it allows the program directors, the APDs to see that they should be giving this candidate an IMG a chance. And the way they prove themselves is either through extensive clinical work or research. Typically, what we do is we place them in a program where they do hard hours, 14, sometimes 16-hour days, hands-on externships, showcasing their patient care. Or it's the research they're doing, deep diving in all their research that they're doing. And we do this, one, for a chance the program directors to see them, but two, if they have any red flags that exist on your CV, right? Whether it's a low score or failed attempt on their boards, or whether they just don't have enough clinical experience, it's a chance to rehabilitate because a lot of times these IMGs, what they're facing is their applications aren't even being viewed. They're
Mm,
It's a
yeah.
system, right?
They get siphoned out easily or
Exactly.
filtered out.
Exactly. And so what we really are known for is making sure that these programs within our network, they're not allowed to do that. We want our candidates to have an equal chance to be viewed. And if they don't meet the criteria, they don't meet the criteria. It's a fair play. But what we specialize in is making sure that no matter what, you're going to have a fair shot and you're going to have a chance to go prove yourself.
So where are most of these candidates coming? Are these, because we have a huge, at least in the United States, we have a huge amount of IMGs that come from the Caribbean. We have IMGs that come from Southeast Asia. Where are the majority of your clients coming from? If you can do that, if you can tell us that.
No worries. Although we have helped people from literally all over the world, primarily it is clients or candidates that come from India and Pakistan. We do have a lot of Nigerians that reach out for help, but we really have a strong foothold in India and Pakistan where the the word of mouth has spread about what it is that we can do for these candidates, these doctors who feel that they don't have a chance. So in the past 20 years, we've held many people from there, people that are now become friends of mine personally that are willing to speak on my behalf, on the company's behalf, if anyone is interested but still has doubts.
Why is this so hard? Like, let's set the stage. Why is this so hard as an international medical graduate to practice in the United States? Because, I we always hear the stories, even before or while in medical school, I heard the story of, there's a janitor at the job who's working at the hospital who was when in their own country was like an amazing either hospitalist or internal medicine doctor or what have you. And, for various reasons, they come to the United States and they find it difficult, to get into a residency or, maybe they're middle aged and they find out they have to do residency all over again. Like set the stage as to like the difficulties, the hurdles, what it looks like for someone who graduates and goes through all the hard work in their respective country or the respective medical school, and then they want to come to the United States. Talk to us about that. What makes it so difficult?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question. There's a lot of underlying layers to it.
I'm sure
There's
there's a lot
different.
of bias.
Yeah, exactly. There's a stereotype. There's a stigmatism to anyone who goes to med school abroad, or practices abroad if they stayed in their home country for a few years. Programs in America, they sort of judge it in a way, and it's not to talk bad about programs in general, right? It's just more of they see so many applications and they just a lot of times don't trust the clinical skills that come from learning medicine in a different country. And as time went by, you sort of see the trend of these programs don't want to take IMGs because of that. They don't trust the clinical skills that are being taught in other countries. And I've experienced it firsthand. I went to medical school in Poland, and when representatives from programs would visit our school as a kind gesture because they knew some people that were a part of the administration. They sort of told us, they said, look, you have to work twice as hard to go prove that you're worthy of patient care because we don't trust you. We, as in programs, majority in the United States. Now, there are programs that are IMG friendly, which is great. But a lot of programs, especially programs where they're well known and they have great pathways into fellowship after you graduate from their residencies. A lot of them don't take to IMGs. A lot of them still don't take DOs as well. If we're really talking about the bias that exists, and
Yeah,
so on a
absolutely. That's still there too.
exactly, and on a smaller scale, so what they're looking at and what they're judging in terms of red flags to determine whether or not they'll give you a chance to interview, red flags that aren't as strict when it comes to American graduates. So you have your USMLE scores, which is, first and foremost, they're going to look at that to see how many times
Right.
you failed. They're going to look at your graduation date. Nowadays, a lot of programs are looking to see if you're 3 years or older, but it usually, or it used to be 5 years and older. So if you're right now a 2018 grad or older, you've missed the cutoff for a lot of these programs, so you're considered an old grad. That's a major red flag, and they're not looking at your application because a lot of these programs only want a 2019 or newer, and some of them really want a 2021 or newer. So that's a major red flag there as well. They're also looking to see if how your clinical experience is. And IMG knows that if you don't get at least 3 months of clinical experience in America, then it's going to be really tough for you to get an interview when you're applying for the interview season. If you get 3 months, that's like the basic requirement. And the problem is that a lot of rotations, they're only observerships or they're not
Yeah.
inpatient, outpatient.
Yeah.
So you're facing
Yeah.
these small hurdles, which end up building up into a big hurdle, a big red flag. A lot
So
of programs.
you can't touch the patient. You can't even write notes.
Exactly, exactly. And that's really important because if these programs already have a bias of saying your clinical skills are not up to date not on our par, then how can you showcase that if majority of programs that do allow IMGs to rotate are not hands-on, they're only observership. So it's just a back and forth for IMGs to face.
What about visas and all that? Does that play a part
Yeah,
too? Like, is there like a
100%.
residencies don't want to deal with that also, or
100%. Because at the end of the day, medical residency is still a business. And to have a visa sponsorship, they have to pay. The GME office has to order that. So, and there's two types of visas. There's a J visa and an H visa. H visa is the one that's really the most sought after because it allows you to leave the country, potentially apply for a green card. But on a J visa, you're locked into your job. You can't move jobs. You can't leave the country. Some of these programs, they just flat out refuse to deal with the visa issues. Now, luckily, the network that we have built, the programs within our network, they are all IMG friendly, and so they are well known to give out visas or sponsor your visa. But that just comes part of the extra time that IMG has to do, the research that they have to do, because you're not just going to apply to any program. You have to go see, are they willing to sponsor you to go work for them?
is there any external signs that a like for example, when I finished my osteopathic medical education in 2006, there was always these things that either on student doctor net or just kind of word of mouth that people would just be like, yeah, they're probably not DO friendly because they don't accept comlink scores, or they've never had an osteopathic grad before, right? Is there things like that that someone can see by scouring either the website of a residency, or is there word of mouth that people know that you can say like that program, that ain't IMG friendly? Are there things like that that you can see just from looking at a website or something like that?
No, that's a good question. I think if this question was asked 10 years ago, it would have been primarily word of mouth. But nowadays, with how society is, the internet, how modern it is, people are constantly communicating. And these IMGs, they have big WhatsApp groups. They
Yeah,
have big Twitter
yeah.
pages, Twitter groups. So they're individually or collectively, and most importantly, privately telling each other and their people in their home country, hey, don't apply there. It's not worth your time. I had a bad experience and you're going to waste your money on the application. So some of these groups, they're not public, but I've seen them. I've heard about it from current candidates of mine, past candidates of mine, and they tell me, we already knew about this program because someone that's my senior from 4 or 5 years ago told us not to apply here. So it's very interesting on how quick the word of mouth is, but via social media, and how private they are with this information. Because at the end of the day, you're also competing with other people who are applying, and you're trying to receive an interview, and if you receive the interview, you're trying to get ranked. So these people, they're not trying to share their secrets. They're holding on to it, understandably so, because it's a survival game. It's dog
Yeah.
eat dog sometimes.
A lot of times I feel like the more people are quiet, the more persistent, like either biases or stigmas or just whatever advantage that someone who has the ability to let people in or not, that stuff continues, right? Like it happens in the doctor realm where, doctors will be at a hospital and that you can have literally, multiple doctors in the same specialty. They don't tell each other how much they make. And that advantage ultimately falls to the hospital, right? Because they can lowball here, they can highball there, and, they have the ultimate say so. So, it's very interesting perspective within that realm. Question for you.
Yeah.
The like what's the profile? Because I know you said there's a majority of your clients come from Southeast Asia. Um, what's the profile? Because in the United States, the average medical school graduate is going to be graduating with a significant amount of debt, right? At least they're saying right now close to about $240,000. That includes medical school and undergrad, right? And then obviously you go through residency, and then depending on what you do, that's going to determine in terms of specialty how quickly you're going to be able to pay that back, right? Would you be able to pay that back 5 years, 10 years post? How's the financial profile work for students for IMGs, right? Like there's always this thought process that like medical school is free. How does that work? Is that a myth? Is that a lie? And then also at the same time, like talk to us about the whole process of the financial prospects of trying to get into the United States to do residency. Talk to us about that.
No, that's a good question. And for the first part, it is true that a lot of medical schools in their respective home country, they won't charge their students that are coming in. The tuition is free if they meet the criteria, if they scored well on their home exam. And a lot of times, like in India, for example, they're called government medical colleges. These schools are really good. They're really talented, filled with amazing students who are going to be amazing physicians, whether it's in their home country or they decide to leave to America or somewhere else. And then you have other schools that are like in America, private schools, not public schools, who are still good medical schools, but they didn't meet the threshold in terms of their scores. So the people or the students that are going to those schools, they're going to have a little bit of debt. A lot of these home countries, they don't even give loans. It's just flat out you have to pay cash or you're not going in. For example, my school in Poland, the tuition was cheap. It wasn't that expensive, relatively speaking, to American med school. And most people, they didn't take loans. They paid out of pocket because it was affordable to an extent. As far as the financial implications of trying to come to America, it's heavy. It's heavy. Like
Yeah,
let's
because I mean
oh,
it's a couple of stacks for step one, step two. Like in order to start to do this, like you would recommend they do all the steps, right? Is that how it works?
yeah. I have all of my candidates, and so does every other counselor here. They have to take step three. It's mandatory. If you want our help, then you have to prepare for step three prior to us assisting you in getting into residency, because step three for an IMG is so clutch. It allows them to stand out because these program directors, tying into the point earlier of wondering whether or not you have the clinical skills, they don't want to be worried about you multitasking or not having the ability to multitask, going through residency as well as studying for your step three. A lot of times I hear stories of IMGs, they go to their program director and they say, hey, I need a couple months off from my residency to study for step three. And no one wants to hear that. Everyone's working, everyone's tired. These PDs, these attendings, they have to teach. And they don't want to be stressed about that. So a lot of these programs within our network will tell us, hey, if they don't have step three done, then don't bother presenting them to us because we don't want to be stressed about them.
So that's a G. I'm looking at the ECFMG, ECFMG, excuse me,
Yeah.
fees overall. And step one, 1,000. Step two, CK, 1,000. Um, oof. Let's see. Pathways application, 925 for the application to to a pathway. Yeah, this could get pretty expensive. And then, we're talking about applications for J1 visa sponsorship, $370. So this stuff can really add up, not to mention possibly needing some tutorials or even some type of board prep,
Oh,
you
for
know?
sure. If you're buying U Worlds, the Q Bank, that's hundreds of dollars right there. You have to pay for your flight to go to America to take your step three, as well as to pay for another flight potentially to do your clinical rotations. Then
You got
your
to go to the United States to take the test.
step three can only be done in America. You can't do it in any other country in the world. It can only be done in America.
Damn.
Yeah,
Wow.
so a lot of these IMGs, what they do, the people that are being smart about it and they're planning it out, they take their step one and step two in their home country, and then they go crazy with their studying for step three. And when they come to America to do their clinical experience, they set time in between one of the months with another month, and they'll take their step three in America. They'll knock out two things in one trip.
Heck. So those who get in, right? You get them in. What's the average time that it takes, right? Because for us applying to medical school, it's a 1 year process, right? At least
Right.
a 1 year process. On average, what are we looking like when you're working with clients who want to get into the United States? Like, what are we talking about? A year, 2 years, 3 years?
So this is a very interesting question. I'm glad you brought it up. It's all a case by case basis because it's dependent. First, what have
You
they
sound like a
already
lawyer.
done?
It
It
depends.
it's true though. It's true. It depends on what they've done first on their own prior to asking us for help, and then two, it depends on the climate of the year, that specific year. Because I'll give you an example. Uh, Someone that signed with me that asked for help. She's already ECFMG certified. She already took step one, step two. She already took her English exam because you have to pass that as well. And she was already living in America. She was on a green card, so they're in Chicago. And when she signed with us, she hadn't taken step three yet. And so we prepared for step three. She was already in the middle of her studying, and she took her exam within a month. And we had a unique opportunity where one of the programs within our network offer or had a position, an off track position. So for any listeners that don't know, off track
Yeah.
can pop up for a multitude of reasons. One, if a program is newly accredited, or two, they recently fired someone or someone quit, which means they have to fill that position quickly. And so the program reached out to us saying, do you have anyone that may meet the criteria? Now, one thing I tell IMGs all the time is do not think that just because you have a good profile on paper, that means you have a good shot of getting to residency, because how you present yourself over a Zoom, how you present yourself over the phone matters. If you cannot
Mm,
articulate yourself well, then in their
got
mind,
you.
your scores don't matter, because how are you going to talk to your patients? And so the one good thing about, alongside other good things, of course, but one of the good things about this specific candidate is she radiated good energy on screen. So I got her the interview, and they loved her. She killed the interview. So she got her off track position when she was expecting to wait the full year. This was months ago. She started her residency back in October. So, to answer your question, if they're already ECFMG certified, we have the ability to get them interviews right away. If their profile is decent, or we know that they can kill the interview. If they're ECFMG certified, but with red flags such as attempts or low scores, we have them do the clinical work first to go prove themselves. If it's someone who is starting out fresh on their journey, what I tell everyone is the same thing. The step one and step two timeline will determine how quick we can get you into residency. Because
So
if you
what happens now that step one is pass fail? Did that change anything, the mathematics, the calculus on any of this stuff?
no, and honestly, for our candidates, the way we approach it and the trend that we've seen since they changed the pass fail, it's been the same. For our candidates when they're already our candidates. Now, I know there's been a statistical change for people in general that are taking the test. I know the percentage has dropped slightly in terms of how many people are successful, but in terms of our candidates, our approach has stayed the same.
Mm. So that like so basically are you forcing it, not forcing it, but like the emphasis has to be on like really killing step two then, right?
Exactly, because IMGs in the past, up until the rule change, have used step one to their advantage to showcase, hey, this American, didn't score as high, but we're killing it. But now they lose that advantage. So
Right.
step one being changed to pass fail has made it even harder for IMGs, and people have complained. I've seen the complaints online.
Yo, so what about the one I want to ask you about is clinical skills? What's the thought on all that being gone now? Like, is that like, do you guys are like, thank goodness? Like, from my standpoint, I'd be like, thank goodness. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think from an IMG's perspective, it's a good thing because the clinical
Or
skills
The PE is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. I think that IMGs struggle historically with that specific step two exam. I've seen people say for them, people that are older than me, that that was the exam they struggled on the most. The other exams, straight MCQ, straight knowledge, or case study knowledge, they've been able to kill. But the talking aspect made it a little difficult for them, and that's because
Rumor is they started that exam for that type of scenario. That's what I heard. We don't know this, but that's kind of the rumor and stuff. I don't know. So,
I wouldn't be surprised. I would believe that rumor for sure.
mhm.
But yeah, it's just the IMGs. They can get away with in terms of not having to speak, they're going to do it because they know that they're at a disadvantage because English is not their natural born language. So they're already up against a wall when it comes to the speaking aspect. But what I tell everyone that's a candidate of mine is you're still making the choice to come to America. So don't think that because of your clinical knowledge and test taking skills that's enough. If you don't present yourself well, you can have a 290 on or 280 on your step two and step three. They're not going to take you because patient care and having the ability to empathize with not only your patients but your coworkers, your staff, from PD to janitor, all of that they take into account. So you have to be able to articulate yourself well. You have to be able to showcase your emotions well. All of that matters.
Yeah, it's got to be really stressful though, because I mean, not only now are you leaving your country, particularly if you're deciding to work with residence medical, you're leaving your country, particularly if you have some red flags and you need to do some clinical rotations. Like, how does that work in terms of you got to find housing? Um, like you're in a different country and you're not sure if this is going to work out. But there's an expenditure on that. Like, talk us through that. Like, how do you coach people through that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of hesitation. There's some nervousness. Obviously, to a lot of folks who come to you guys are like their lifeboat, their life jacket. Talk to us about that, how serious that is and how that works.
It's very serious. I what I make sure I do is prior to, having them sign with us, I break down everything with them. I break down from the get-go, look, this is what you should be expecting to pay because this is where we're sending you in terms of your clinical experience. So let's say hypothetically it's in Miami. The program's in Miami. So we as you and I
I
both
did my
know.
fellowship there. It was
Oh, there you
dope.
go. There you go.
Miami's dope. All right, okay.
And as then I'm sure, as you know, it can get a little expensive there. They're going to be living there. If they have a bad
Yeah.
profile, if they got multiple red flags, you can, and if especially if they're an old grad, you can expect them to be integrating, doing the clinical work for as long as 8, 9 months, because what these programs are going to be telling us, and we communicate with the programs frequently. They tell us, hey, they're progressing along, but they need to keep showcasing their clinical skills. They need to go continue to prove themselves. So what I tell all of these candidates prior to them even signing with us, you need to expect to pay this much because it's not just paying as a residence medical that it's guaranteed. No, this doesn't work like that. What we're doing is opening the doors and allowing you to go prove yourself, and all of that still costs extra money because you got to go pay for accommodation, you got to pay for your U worlds, your study material. Our tutors are going to take care of you, but the material itself you still have to go get. You have to pay for food, and you have to pay for anything the hospital, the program requires you to have in order to be learning from them. So all of that, as well as the flights, right? That comes with the tariffs. And
Bro.
so all of it's going to build up. And I tell everyone, look, I'm never going to be the one sitting here trying to coerce you to commit to us financially. I'm not going to do that. If you have the financial means, what I am going to do, what I'm going to make sure I do is get you this residency that you're dreaming for, as long as you commit to me and are willing to put in the work, because you still have to put in the work. That comes with anything in life.
Mm, man. So, okay, got you on that point. So when they're doing rotations and they're rehabbing themselves, this is rehabbing like almost like a sub internship, or is this like so like more on the medical student side, or are they actually on working with residents and they're basically considered part of the team, but this is like a tryout. How does that work?
No, that's a good question. So what I and that's a common question too that people ask when I'm doing my consultations. It is technically a sub I as a graduate, so they're working with the residents and they're listening to the attendings. But the program knows that we're the ones that sent them. So they know that we have the intention to network on their behalf, that we have the intention to nominate them, their candidacy for one of their interview slots when it comes time for interview season. But they treat them like sub-Is because they want them to go showcase why they deserve a chance. While we're working in the shadows in the background internally, contacting the PD, saying, "Hey, how's my candidate doing? Is he or she putting in the work? What are her strengths? What are her weaknesses?" And then when I find all that information, I relay it back to my candidate on my weekly call with them, or I'll give them a surprise call and say, "Hey, I heard you're doing really strong in this, but you're weak in this specific area. You need to step it up," because they're not happy with that. I communicate all of it with my candidates because I want them to know that I'm an open book and the program is an open book. They're willing to give you a chance, but you have to go showcase that you're willing to rehab these weaknesses that you have, whether it's clinical or whether it's just to showcase that your scores don't represent who you are, your clinical skills represent who you are. But they do get treated as sub-Is with sort of a good asterisk next to their name that this is a residence medical candidate, so they're hoping to get an interview from us.
Yo, sub-Is are tough though, yo. Because I remember doing sub-Is for Gen Surge. I was at the hospital by 4, leaving by 7, writing, doing PowerPoints for M&Ms and all those different things. So sub-Is are no joke. I still remember that. Man,
They're
so
crazy.
because there's got to be people that you look at and you're like, yeah, you're not going to be a good fit, right? So talk to us about those who residence medical is for and who it's not for, and be honest.
No, no, for sure. And that's a good question too, because obviously these people with a horrible profile come to us, right? Someone with many, many failed attempts or their scores are just absolutely horrible. But most importantly, it's the people that are super old graduates. And I empathize with them because it's not their fault that they moved to America at a later stage in their life, right? A lot of these doctors are respective physicians in their home country, but them and their family decided they wanted a better life and they moved to America, but they're already, 45, 50 years old. Their graduation date was, 1995 or
Yeah.
2000, something like that. And so they come and talk to us. What we do first and foremost is we evaluate uh, what skills they have. And if they have skills that we can use to our advantage when speaking with programs, and these skills outweigh their weaknesses on their profile, even if they're a 1995 grad, we know we can get them in. We have a chance. Now, with these horrible profiles, I tell them straight up, you're going to integrate you're going to integrate and do the clinical work for a year straight, and I don't want to hear you complain saying it's too long of a work, because these programs, I can't just set up direct interviews. They're going to look at us like we're crazy and say, why are you offering us a 1995 grad with a couple of attempts? It's sort of disrespectful, honestly. So what we tell them is we send them to programs that are known to give old grads a chance, especially if they're a program that knows us already. We have, again, a proven track record of these old grads still doing well. So they'll give these old grads a chance, but it requires a long, long process of rehabilitation and they have to commit. And it does get pricey sometimes, right? Because they're not in America for a few months. We're having them essentially move here for a year just to do
Mhm.
clinical, and they're not
Yeah.
getting paid, right? It's an externship.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I
Yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah,
they're not
yeah,
getting
you're not even
paid.
getting the income during this time.
No, no, they got to earn that. They got to earn that. So it can get pricey, right? And I tell them from the get-go, I'm not trying to play you. I'm not trying to fool you. This is what it's going to take. This is the approximate cost. If you have the financial means, we can assist you in getting your dream residency as long as you put in the work. If you don't have the financial means, there are other avenues for you to be working clinically. It's just that residency is tough. This sometimes it is what it is.
And no doubt, anybody who trains in a different country and they've already practicing, you have to do residency again to come to the United States, correct?
Yes, yes. And this is what I feel personally the most horrible about. You have these physicians, some of these physicians are not just well respected, but known. They're famous in their home country. They've done big things in their home country, innovative things. And in America, they don't care. These programs, the system does not care. You can be so famous that you're consulting physicians in America, but when it comes time that you want to go practice in America, they'll treat you like a PGY1 or really a PGY0. They don't
Yo,
care.
yo, I
They
need
don't
labs
care.
in the morning, yo. Where's my soap note? Yeah, that's bad. That's horrible. And is a lot of that based off of something like, is it like, just be honest, like, is it based off of like a real bias, like, or is there something to that? Like, what exactly is it that we're not trusting? Is it the educational system we're not trusting? Is it just cockiness on the United States medical training system? What do you think is the number one issue with that type of thought process where people can be even at medical schools that are well respected, right? Like this will
Yeah,
be an issue, right?
no, for sure. I think all of that comes into play a part, a combination. But if I had to choose one, I'm still gonna choose the fact that they went to medical school abroad.
Yeah,
I
that's a
I
big
think
issue.
that yeah, I think that program directors, especially older program directors, from back in the day, they are just not gonna trust someone who did not practice or get taught medicine in the States. They don't care where you come from. Uh, Even recently, it took up to recently for them to even give the Caribbean a chance, right? And I've heard stories of these programs slowly not wanting to take Caribbean school students anymore either. And so it's come to a point where
And we
these
still have shortages in the United States like crazy,
exactly.
particularly in the Midwest and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. But there recently, I mean, a couple of these states are slowly starting to change their rules where uh, if you are a prospective candidate, but you don't want to go through residency, if you qualify, they'll let them get their GP license, a limited GP license, and
Mm.
that way under the mentorship and guidance of a PD of a residency. Now, I think in terms of all 50 states, it'll still take like 20, 30 years for that to happen. But there are a few states that are considering and almost their bill is passed. So I think when you and I are a lot older, their times will be changed. But for now, it'll stay the same. Be tough.
I know you mentioned that they have direct access to you guys through your cell phones. I'm sure you have to do some type of pickup call or, like a pick me up because that's got to be tough, right? You're during this time, you're probably away from your family. You're not sure, like we said, like what's the mindset, right? Because we already got physician burnout as a major issue, even among residents and medical students, right? And now you're talking about people who are spending money to do something that's not even guaranteed. At least, if you're in medical school in the United States, like you feel like you're kind of plugged along that highway that's going to eventually get you to practicing as a physician. And there's no guarantees in this situation. What's up with that? Talk to us about that mindset.
No, for sure. I have, I can speak in terms of what my candidates go through. And these candidates, essentially we've promised them that if you come do the clinical work and spend the time in America away from your family, whether it's away from their family in the States or away from their family in their home country, but we need you to go. We need you to go prove yourselves. Even now, it's February, right? They're feeling the pressure. They're feeling the pressure because it's all coming to an end. They don't know yet if they've done enough. They start to get high anxiety, they're homesick. And it's my job to make sure that I help them along the way, especially right now, because we're the ones, we as in residence medical, we as a counselor, I'm one of the counselors, we're the ones who assure them that if they go along this path, that you will end up having your dream residency announced. And so it's my job to make sure that I take their call every night, every day, every night, whether it's once, whether it's multiple times. I'm going to talk to you. I will be available at any stage of the day and reassure you that although it's going to be really hard right now, and it's not even March yet, so it's going to be really
Mhm.
hard 6 weeks up until match week, and you're going to be really stressed, but don't give in to that anxiety and that stress because you made it to the finish line. And that doesn't just go for all of my candidates, it goes for IMGs in general. don't don't have a panic attack, even though if it's it's natural, but you have to be staying calm because it's the last leg of the marathon. So if you feel that burnout now, when residency gets announced next month, then it'll all be for nothing. And I think it's really important to say, and if I'm stepping on your toes, I'm sorry, but even if you don't match next month, that doesn't mean your season is over, because soap and post match exist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've seen IMGs who don't get the announcement on the Monday of match week just have a complete fallout, and they break down. And when people that I know that happened to them, I tell them, hey, you wanted this, so you have to start thinking logically and smart. Your time isn't done. You still have to go through soap, and these positions that don't get filled in match and soap, the programs have to fill them. So it's not like they just go away. So from soap up until June, these positions are still available. So you need to do your part and make sure you're presentable, both physically, emotionally, and most importantly, clinically, to showcase to them all the way up until June. I've had candidates of mine who have scratched and clawed, and they proved themselves. It took a while. I got them an interview second week of June. They got the residence.
That
Now,
far in.
yeah, and we can
Okay.
go, we can go even farther. It's
Hmm.
people think the stereotype of you need to match by March, so you
Right.
start residency in July. They think in those lines. It's not black and white. It's really not, and that's not just for IMGs. That's for AMGs. If you go through Twitter and you scroll through the trends right now in terms of residency, I've seen so many Americans tweet telling them their
Yeah,
stories,
that's a
them
good point.
saying, we didn't go the traditional route. It was unorthodox what happened to us, and we're successful attendings or in fellowship. So the story doesn't end for you just because you don't match. The story, it will continue to go as long as you have the willpower and the fire to do so.
Yeah, I think Twitter, social media in general, that's really taken let's just say it used to be very opaque, the whole system, right? And you never know who went through their issues. Like I've on my show been very clear in letting people know that I applied to medical school twice, but to some people, like, depending on when you grew up and what your generation is, having to reapply to medical school or not getting into match and going through the SOAP process, some people may look at that as like a scarlet letter,
Yeah.
and I think that Twitter, social media, you have more people who are normalizing that, hey, for a lot of us, this process is not a smooth road. Sometimes you hit potholes, sometimes you got to take a detour, and you know what? I'm much better for it, right? And I think the more people that we have doing that, the better. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people, like, man, it's when you find out that you don't match, whew, you know,
It's heartbreaking. I've
yeah.
seen it in my family. I've seen it in my friends. Some are celebrating, and at the same time, on the same couch, some are crying. I've
Oh
seen it
man,
happen. Yeah.
you come from a family of doctors?
I have cousins, and then I
Uh-huh.
have a lot of friends that went the medical school route, whether it's as an IMG or as an AMG, an American grad. I've seen both. I've seen both routes, so I've seen both expectations, both struggles, and some of it is the same struggle, but a lot of it is different.
Mm. Well, listen, guys, Residence Medical is like that. We actually did an Instagram like video live several months ago, and it was very well received. I think in that discussion, we were talking about were we talking about mental health?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for
we were
positions.
talking. We were talking about mental health, and I kind of talked about me doing locums, which is basically kind of my way of kind of deplugging from the system. I still am able to take care of people, but it gives me the opportunity to be in the system and then kind of check out and so forth. So you guys might find me in Residence Medical doing another live, hopefully in the future. But for anybody who wants to get in contact with Residence Medical, for anybody who wants to learn more, give us the ways that people can get in touch with you, learn more about the organization, the company, take it from there.
I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate everything that you guys got going on, and I can't wait to hop back on here so we can continue to talk about the struggles that IMGs face, as well as doctors in general. So to get in contact with Residence Medical, feel free to go on our website, residencemedical.com, book a consultation. Our consultations are free. If you have a specific counselor you want to talk to, our counselor profiles are on the website, as well as DM us on all our socials, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And if you see my LinkedIn, my personal work LinkedIn, feel free to DM me as well. I'm always active on there. I'm always responding, and one of the counselors, including me, will definitely reach out to you as well, and we'll schedule a free Zoom for you.
How long does the consultation normally take?
At most an hour. I think on average between 30 minutes to an hour. It's really where we get all the information, your background information provided by you, and we go over your pathway, where you are currently, what is expected of you to do, and how we can help you. But typically in between 30 minutes to an hour.
So when someone is working with you guys or decides to work with you guys, the onboarding process to actually possibly being placed, to do some clinical work or maybe even getting mentorship from you guys officially, how long does that process take?
So I've seen it happen as quick as 2 weeks, where someone, after meeting with them, and typically what I do after having a consultation, and they go back and speak with their families or their friends, family friends, and uh, it, I give them references. So once they're speaking with the references, and they're convinced, once they sign with us, we get them onboarded within a couple of days. And if they're already in the States and they're willing to fly to wherever we need them, we can get them in a clinical setting as fast as a week after that.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's pretty fast, depending on if you are in the United States or not. Okay.
Yeah. But if they're in a different country, let's say India or Pakistan, it'll take them a couple weeks to buy their flight, because we understand the flight prices. And if you buy an international flight a couple days prior, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So we tell them, don't worry about it. Take it 2 to 3 weeks to get the price back to normal. And then once you fly out here, then you'll be ready to go.
But don't they have to get like a visa and all that?
So most of the candidates of ours should, at the very least, already have a travel visa, B1, B2
Got you.
visa. If they don't, then we assist them. We have immigration lawyers that are friends of ours, and will sort of expedite the process to getting them the travel visa, which has happened for sure.
Friends in high places. I see. I see. Okay. Okay. Well, everyone, that's Dr. Simrat Gill representing Residence Medical. Listen, these are your folks. If you are an IMG student or IMG graduate and you are looking for placement in medical residency or in fellowship, this is the organization, this is the company that you want to align yourself with. Listen, we will put the show notes on how people can get in contact with you guys below if you're watching on YouTube, or it will be in the show notes if you're listening on the podcast. But once again, guys, if you need help and you're an IMG student, this might be your lifeline that you need. Dr. Gill, thank you for your time. Everybody at Residence Medical, we appreciate you collaborating with Docs Outside the Box. And listen, guys, we're going to catch you guys on the next episode.
Thank you for having me. I appreciated this.